Usually, when I build my applications here, I start from the back up to front. What I mean by that is, at this point here, we could go ahead and start putting together a user interface, which would have been fine. Some people do that. But I like to get all of the basics or all of the back-end things done before I move forward. What I mean by that is, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and create a model class. So a model class will create a model of a question. So that thing that represents one question. So we've seen that before. So I'm going to click here, say new, Java class, and I'm going to call this question. Okay, just hit enter and voila. Now, what will a question have? Well, a question will have two things at this point here. So first thing is going to be the string, which is the question or the answer for that matter, right? So the thing they're going to see, for which they will have to decide whether it's true or not. And then, of course, whether it's true or not. So a boolean. So I'm going to do here and say private string answer. I'm going to call it answer. I'm going to say private. This is going to be a boolean, and it's going to be answer true like that. I say command N. First of all, I'm going to create a constructor. This one will have those two, but also because I like this, I'm going to create another constructor, which is just going to be an empty constructor. So it's not going to have anything. So I say, okay, in fact, I'm going to get rid of all of that. That way, we don't have to always create a question and have to pass the answer and the answer true. Okay. So I like doing this way for flexibility. So the next thing I'm going to do here is create getters and setters. So click there. Should be able to do this in your sleep at this point. And there we go. We have getters and setters for our question class. And that's it. All right. So I'm going to get rid of this. So we're going to create our question bank class. So it's going to be inside of a data here. What this will do is going to help us go and create questions, meaning go and get fetch data from the API and create those questions, right? So there we go. I'm going to call this question bank, hit enter, and there we go. So the idea here is very simple. This question bank class will have a method which will be able to get all the questions. Where is this going to be happening from? Well, all these questions are going to be coming from an API. Now, I found an API online by doing just a very simple Google search. So anytime you want to look for an API, you can just do a Google search, JSON API plus whatever it is that you want. So it could be jokes, could be trivia, it could be news, whatever it is that you want, you can just search like that. Now, this is actually hosted as a raw data in GitHub. So you will have access to this link here. But you can see here, this is our data. So let me make this a little bit bigger so you can hopefully see better. So this is indeed our data as I said. So you notice here, the first question I'm going to ask you is, what is the root of our data here? Right. You should say the root is a JSON array. Why? Because we have these square brackets. But the interesting thing here is that even within inside now, we also have arrays as its children. So we have a JSON array at the top, and within the array, we have an array inside of each index of this main array. So now you can imagine that the first thing we need to do, of course, is going to use the JSON array request. Once we have that, we can then loop through and get each index, and incidentally inside we're going to go and get the first question, and comma, it's going to be the actual whether it's true or not. Okay, because this indeed is another array inside of an array. So if we want to get the question here, we will get the 0th index within this array, and the first index, of course, number 1, is going to be the boolean true or false. All right, so that's what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to copy this and put somewhere here so that we can use it. So I'm going to just come up here. I'm going to just say private string URL as such. Oops. Is equal to. I'm going to put inside of get rid of that. There we go. We have our URL here, which we're going to be using shortly here. So the next thing we're going to do here is we are going to add, in fact, at the top here, an array list. Now, what's happening here? Well, we need to create an array list of question objects, because what we're going to do here is put everything inside of an array list and then return it so that whenever we want to invoke or get our question bank, we just can invoke our question bank and then go to that get questions, which will return a list of questions. Okay, so what we're going to do here, I'm going to say array list. I know the types that I need. They're going to be question type, right? And I'm going to call this question array list. I'm going to say is equal to new array list as such. Okay, so I'm instantiating an empty array list, but I know it's going to be holding question types. So then here at the bottom, I'm going to create a public list which will contain question types. Again, call this get questions. Very good. So here we go. We have our function here. So this function will have to return something. What is it going to return? Well, it should return a question array list because we say this will have to return a list of some sort. Now the difference here between array list and list, well, array list in this case here, it's an implementation of a list. So they're pretty much the same thing. So usually we could have put here array list, but putting list here, it will include all of the other implementation of array lists and so forth. Okay, very good. So at this point here, we're going to have a problem here because it's saying it's missing a return type. That's fine. We're going to fix that in a second here. I'm going to say return null for now. Okay, we're going to fix that. Very good. So we have here our method, which will return an array containing all of the questions, right? So a question object, which in turn will have this, the question, and of course attached to it, it's going to have whether it's false or true. So an actual object. So now we know it is all an array root because we said so here, right? So we're going to go ahead and fetch all of this data through by saying JSON array request, call the JSON array request is equal to new JSON array request as such. So the first thing I'm going to pass is going to be request.method.get. The next thing is going to be our URL, right? Where are we going to get this information, which is this here. And here I'm going to pass null, but we know we're going to have an issue here, so I might as well go ahead and add a JSON array type here, so that way we don't have issues with our version of Valley at this point here. Okay, we are masking it here to make sure that this is just not a null, but it is a JSON type of null. Okay, just to shut it up, we don't run into issues. And then we're going to put our response callback here. So I'm going to pass in new response listener like that, and voila. Okay, to finalize this, you remember we have to come down here and add the actual response. Here I'm going to say comma, so new response error, and voila. Don't forget to put our semicolon there, and I'm going to put it all there. Okay, there we go. So we have the structure for our JSON array request. All right, so at this point here, nothing really is new. So we've seen this before, we know exactly what's going on. So now it's time. We have our response JSON here, JSON array. That means now we are able to get all of this information here. So there's a lot of information, as you can see, right? So how do we go through and get all of that stuff? Well, simply to start with right now, I'm going to come down here and say the following. Log D. At this point here, I can actually create a tag by just say Alt Enter for window and just pick one here, right? So I'm going to say app controller, and there we go. So what it does, it just create a little tag here that will know that every time we run this, it's going to show at least this address there. Okay, that's all we're trying to do here. Very good. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going ahead and say JSON stuff like that. And for response, I'm going to just dump the whole response like that. All right. Very good. And at this point here, I'm not returning anything yet, which is fine. But if we were able to run this, of course, nothing's going to happen. The reason why, because this is actually telling us that we haven't actually added to our request. Remember how to do that. So very easily, we come down here. I'm going to say app controller. Now we're going to be able to use it and say dot get instance dot add to request, and we're going to pass our JSON request like that. Okay, very good. So now we have that set up. We could come to our main here and check things out. So I'm going to go ahead and just say new question bank dot get questions and see what's going to happen. Okay, let's run this. Pick one. Let's see what's going to happen. If all goes well, we should have everything working. Of course, in our user interface, there's really nothing new there. And there go hello world. So nothing really exciting there. Let's go here and voila. Our response, there it is. It's getting everything from our JSON APIs. In fact, you come here, horoscopes accurately predict future events 85% of the time. That is indeed the first question you can see here. And also getting the false for that trivia question. Very good. So at this point here, we should be very happy because at least all of the hard work we've put in right now here, it's working, meaning that we've separated things around. So question bank, we just call new question bank that get questions and goes ahead and run our get question methods here, method I should say. And of course, inside on response, we just putting all the response outside there in the log so we can just see that things are working. So things should be good by now. So things are good. Congratulations if you got to this point. And in the next video, we're going to continue dissecting and putting things together so that we can start seeing good progress here. Wonderful. I'll see you next time.